Buddhism suddenly deteriorated in India sometime after the 4th century of the Christian era. It has been rightly said that Hinduism stifled it in its friendly embrace. Like Christianity and Judaism in Judea and Confucianism and Taoism in China, Buddhism had to be exiled from India for it to become a world religion. It was necessary for India to turn to a more primitive folk religion. Hinduism perfunctorily retained the name Buddha in a far corner of its pantheon, where he was preserved as the 9th of the 10 avatars of Vishnu. Vishnu is believed to assume 10 transfigurations: Matsya, the fish; Kurm, the land tortoise; Varha, the boar; Narasimha, the man-lion; Vamana, the dwarf; Parshurama, Rama, Krishna, the Buddha, and the Kalki. According to the Brahmins, Vishnu, assuming the form of Buddha, purposely introduced a heretical religion so that believers would be led astray, thus presenting the opportunity for the Brahmins to lead them back to their true religion, Hinduism. Thus, along with the decline of Buddhism, the cave temples at Ajanta in western India fell into ruin and became known to the world only 12 centuries later, in 1819, when a British Army corps chanced upon them. Yukio Mishima, The Temple of Dawn. Yukio Mishima's passage from The Temple of Dawn provides a thought-provoking perspective on the decline of Buddhism in India. Historically, Buddhism began to wane in India after the 4th century CE due to a combination of factors, including the resurgence of Hinduism, which absorbed many Buddhist elements and practices. Hinduism's incorporation of Buddha as an avatar of Vishnu is a notable example of this assimilation. Additionally, the rise of new forms of Hinduism and the subsequent decline in royal and public support for Buddhist monasteries contributed to Buddhism's diminishing presence. The invasions by various groups, including the Huns and later Islamic rulers, further weakened Buddhist institutions. By the 12th century, with the fall of the Pala dynasty, Buddhism had largely disappeared from India too. Mishima's narrative highlights how Buddhism's exile from India allowed it to flourish as a world religion, spreading to other parts of Asia where it continued to grow and evolve. Although Buddhism had declined in major regions of Indian subcontinent, it managed to flourish in small pockets of Kashmir and Himalayas. Also, Buddhism in Nepal managed to keep itself alive till this day despite the total population being only 9% of total Nepalese population. It never faced major setbacks by majority Hindu population, unlike India. Sri Lanka and Bhutan are the only surviving Buddhist majority countries in South Asia. Region of Bengal we know today was the heartland of Mahayana Buddhism before its collapse after 12th century AD due to Islamic invasion and Brahminical assimilation. Luckily, it had managed to survive an Arakan region where southern Theravada traditions flourished with the patronage of the state. Today, Arakan is home to diverse ethnic groups and culture living in harmony. Chittagong was a part of Arakan Kingdom and has a long history of various wars and invasions, thus spreading diversity of various indigenous tribes, most of them who are adherents of Theravada Buddhism. One of the notable ethnic groups who are at the verge of extinction are the Baruas, also known as Maramagyi and Rakhine. Due to influence of Bengali nationalism and forceful settlement by Bengalis, Chittagong Hill Tracts, which was previously a non-Muslim majority region, was incorporated into East Pakistan despite the opposition, thus creating ruckus and ethnic tensions in this region. Baruas have lost their own indigenous identity, thus separating from its sister tribes Chakma, Marma and Rakhine. Despite the Barua Maf community being the most successful community in terms of profession, education and intellect, they still stay behind due to identity crisis caused from assimilation and long influence of Bengali nationalism. Also, their culture and language have been completely lost. The younger generation are unaware of their glorious past due to unwillingness and heedlessness among today's Barua youth. They have told since the childhood that they are Bengali Buddhists. Baruas have adopted some Hindu customs and traditions while other Buddhist groups like Chakma and Marma refuse to assimilate further, thus creating a dilemma of generational trauma which will soon be impossible to recover. The Barua or Maramagri are a distinct ethnic group, similar to the Chakma, Marma, Rakhine, Bengali, Koch, Garo, Tamil, and English. British anthropologists consider them to be part of the Mug tribe. Historically, the Barua, Marma, and Rakhine collectively ruled Arakan and regions of Chittagong and other areas for a long time. Previously, these three ethnic groups were known as Mug. However, due to some cultural differences, it is evident that they are distinct ethnic groups. It is worth noting that many people think that all Buddhists in this region are Mug, but this is not true. For example, the Chakmas are Buddhists but not Mugs. Essentially, the Barua, Marma, and Rakhine are the three ethnic groups that were originally permanent residents of Arakan. Although these three ethnic groups currently show reluctance to identify as Mug, they were historically known as such. Sri Bimalakaran Mahathira conducted 15 years of research on the Barua or Maramagri ethnic group in Arakan. According to him, during the reign of the Chandravanshi kings Bahubali and Ragupti in Arakan, the descendants of Bahubali were known as Barua or Maramagri, and the descendants of Ragupti were known as Rakhine and Marma. Long ago, due to the desire for territorial expansion and later due to invasions by foreign tribes in the medieval period, they migrated from the Magadha kingdom of India to Arakan. Because they came from Magadha, they were identified as Mug. It is not only the Barua or Maramagri who came from Magadha, but the original homeland of the other Mugs was also Magadha. British scholars like Wilson, Ritter, F.R. Muller, and Colonel Yule believe that Mug refers to the people of the Arakan-Chittagong border area. According to Colonel Yule and Sir Arthur Phayer, the royal lineage of Arakan came from the Magadha dynasty of India. This is an undeniable truth. The first king of the Arakan royal lineage, Marayu, was a descendant of the Sakya clan. Long before the birth of Buddha, he expanded his kingdom from India to Arakan. Subsequently, kings like Abhiraj, Kanrajagri, and Chandrasurya, all of whom were Sakya descendants, expanded their kingdoms from India to Arakan. Ancient historical texts of Arakan mention that from the 4th century AD, the Mugs, Rakhine, Marma, and Barua or Maramagri ruled 12 cities in Arakan and Bengal. This is evidenced in ancient historical texts of Arakan. However, during the invasion of King Anuradha of Pagan and later during the time of Naramikla, they failed to maintain their territorial boundaries. According to Dalton, the Arakanese are not originally Burmese. They came from a different region. Mantegazza also agrees with Dalton's view. However, all British anthropologists agree that the Barua or Maramagri, Marma, and Rakhine were Mugs. Initially, British anthropologists believed that the Barua or Maramagri were a mixed ethnic group, with fathers being Arakanese soldiers and mothers being Bengali. They thought that during the medieval Arakanese rule, the Barua ethnic group originated from the union of Arakanese soldiers and Bengali women during the Mug-Bengali Wars. British anthropologist Risley stated that this idea was first proposed by Sir Arthur Phayer because the appearance and physique of the Baruas are very similar to those of the Marma and Rakhine. Later, in 1891, Hunter repeated this erroneous theory in a different way. In protest against this misconception, the then prominent leader of the Barua or Maramagri community, the late Bhagirath Barua, sent a letter to them. Later, noticing a similar mistake in a government publication, Sri Umesh Chandra Machadi also protested. They then declared that they were not a mixed ethnic group and stated that they were identified as Mug because they came from Magadha. Sri Umesh Chandra Machadi further stated that if the Barua ethnic group were a mixed ethnic group, why would the Marma and Rakhine honor them as Maramagri? Those who suppress history doubt that the Baruas are Mug. However, the identification of the Baruas as Mug does not express their distinctiveness because the Marma and Rakhine are also Mugs. However, the current identification of the Baruas as Maramagri preserves their distinctiveness. The true history of our ethnic identity is hidden in the history of the Maramagri identification. The importance of this identification is that without it, we would be considered a mixed and inferior ethnic group. Without this identification, we would be subject to contempt and disdain from the Bengalis and certainly from the current Arakanese. British scholar Sir Arthur Phayer later conducted more extensive research due to such protests and discovered the distinct ethnic identity of the Barua or Maramagri. He subsequently acknowledged his previous mistake. Later, British anthropologists, through more detailed research, understood that the Barua or Maramagri were not a mixed ethnic group but rather a distinct one. At that time, the term Barua was merely a title. The ethnic identity was Maramagri. During that period, titles like Rajbanshi, Singh, Singha, and Pru were used more frequently than the title Barua. Those who currently hold the title Barua were also known as Bia Mug at that time. After the British took control of Bengal in 1757 and later published the Gazetteer, they conducted an investigation into the Barua or Maramagri ethnic group. They concluded that due to a political issue in Arakan in 1638, most of the Maramagri people left Arakan and settled in Kainsai, an area near the Karnafili River, and did not return to Arakan. During the Pakistan era, our official records in the Gazetteer identified us as Maramagri. In this country, we speak Bengali. Over the past 150 to 200 years, we have lost our ancient language. Despite this, many cultural distinctivenesses still remain among us. Currently, it seems that we ourselves are reluctant to maintain a distinct or separate identity. Now we are identifying ourselves as Bengali in our ethnic identity, which is truly objectionable and shameful. Do our leaders not have anyone to take charge? Can they not say that Barua or Maramagri is a distinct ethnic group? We have a golden past, a separate rich history, and stories of victory.
Mahamuni Bhagavan Muni Mahabhagavan Mahamuni Bhagavan Bodhendrane Gaisami Dhamendrane Gaisami Langendrane Gaisami Dudiyapi Bodhendrane Gaisami Dudiyapi Dhamendrane Gaisami Dudiyapi Langendrane Gaisami Tadiyapi Bodhendrane Gaisami Tadiyapi Dhamendrane Gaisami Tadiyapi Langendrane Gaisami